You are in the making. All new episodes air on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We hope you enjoy. Please follow along.
Hey everybody, and welcome to In the Making, the podcast where we talk about the twists, pivots, and reinventions that shape our lives. I'm your host, Michael Betz, and I'm also the author of the upcoming book, In the Making, which explores those very moments of transformation and what it means to embrace the in-betweens. Today, I'm honored to be joined by someone who's making a massive impact in maternal and infant health, who's also been my friend for my entire adulthood, Camie Berardi. Camie has spent 15 years driving change in healthcare policy and access, and now she's leading B2B healthcare expansion at Tinyhood, a female-founded company on a mission to revolutionize parenting, education, and support. We're diving deep into career transitions, the growing care economy, and the realities of being a working parent in today's world. If you're ever struggling with career uncertainties, work-life balance and its unbalances, or advocating to and for yourself in the workplace, this episode is for you. Welcome, Camie.
Thank you, Michael. So great to be here.
Well, we'll be right back as we continue our conversation.
Now, a quick word from our partners, and then we'll return to In the Making podcast. I'm back. It's Michael Betz, your host of In the Making podcast, and the proud president and managing partner of the Proper Group. The past year, transforming the Proper Group has been one of the most exhilarating and rewarding experiences of my life. But when people ask, what is the Proper Group? My honest answer is, we don't fully know. Well, let me explain. We do know. We're just building something different. The Proper Group is 70% baked. Our founder, Larry Burns, laid the foundation. Now we're evolving into an elite collective of fractional C-suite leaders driving real sustainable growth. What we're not is a bloated consultancy with junior talent doing the real work, or a siloed agency only focusing on one or two functions. What we are is a cross-functional growth accelerator, a hands-on execution partner embedding with leadership teams. Because when companies grow, they grow fast. And without the right foundation, that growth won't last. That's where we come in. Let's talk, explore what we're building, and see if this would be the right fit for your team. We're just getting started, and come along for the ride. The Proper Group. We're on the move. Visit us at www.theproper.group. Now let's get back to the podcast.
Welcome back. Well, Camie, you've had an incredible career in public health and healthcare policy, working with organizations like the NYS Department of Health, the Children's Health Association, actually Hospital Association, and the Massachusetts Health Connector. But then you made a pivot to Tinyhood and the care economy. Really, can you go back and really what led you to this decision?
Yeah, no, Michael, it's an exciting conversation. In many ways, I feel like my path has kind of always been aligned. And then when you piece it apart, it is a bit distinct to kind of go from policymaking to nonprofit to trade association to government agency. And now I'm sitting in the consumer side, kind of on a business platform. And it's a wonderful journey. Just quickly prior to Tinyhood, I was working on a quality improvement initiative in maternal health. And so those efforts really are kind of dedicated to focus on improving the clinical delivery of care. And I always joke, I really just know enough to be dangerous clinically. I had the privilege and opportunity to work with some of the brightest minds and the most talented physicians. And, this particular effort was really a data-driven focus to improve the experience of a patient's care during the birth of their child. In that role, I had this front row seat to survey data that kind of continued to show and underscore for me that our healthcare ecosystem is largely ignoring and dismissing the voice of the patient. So it was kind of in that moment where I said, wow, I've sat on one side of the house looking at this from the clinical lens, and I kind of want to see what I can do on the other side of this house. So Tinyhood's kind of on-demand, multilingual expert education is targeted toward activating that patient's voice in their healthcare. It's leading to not only better experiences, but improved outcomes for mom and baby. And And Michael, we have a crisis in our country in maternal health.
Yes.
Women today are less likely to have better outcomes than their mother before them. They're more likely to die in birth in our country. And this is 3 to 4 times higher for Black women, regardless of their income or education. And this crisis really demands a multi-pronged approach. So I was eager to jump into the consumer side of this problem.
That's amazing. And what trailblazing work you all are doing. It's just been impressive to watch. You kind of touched base about on this, but really what was the aha moment that made you realize you wanted to work on this side of the business and this side of healthcare innovation?
Yeah, I love that question. And truly, it was when I was a consumer myself, when I was giving birth to my 3rd little boy. And I just said, there has to be a better way. I had already done this. I had been through it in different health systems, some of the best hospitals in the world. And I still left those moments feeling underserved, not heard, and just felt like there has to be a better way. And really, in particular, that moment when I had my 3rd kiddo, I called one of the co-founders of Tinyhood. She's a dear friend of mine. And I said, hang on a minute. We've got this backwards.
Yeah.
Like, I really feel like even though I have a lot of education in this space and I know how to advocate for myself, I still didn't know a lot. And it was just a really big aha moment where I said, I want to jump in. Let's do something together and change this from the inside. Let's focus on how can we empower a patient. I think that, like I said, that multi-pronged approach it demands the systemic change. But I get the excitement of focusing on how we can make it better for moms and caregivers and birthing people.
That's amazing. And we'll add a link on how people can download the app or go to any of your platforms. So jumping right back in, fear and doubt is a big thing. So when you're trying to make especially a major, career pivot from policy to platform technology, what were some of the biggest fears or doubts you had when making that jump?
Oh, sure. I mean, doubts always creep in. And, I would say I probably believed too much in this kind of dichotomy between a nonprofit world and the for-profit world, and that those two couldn't really coexist. And
Nope.
It's such a fallacy. I'm so excited to day by day be proving that wrong. I think there is beauty in both. And so but I did have that fear when coming into this kind of B2B side and this consumer driven for-profit investors looking for a return. And I thought I could really, I'm a nonprofit person. I kind of want to do this for the mission. And the beauty is, so do my co-founders.
That's amazing.
They started this because they were parents themselves, software engineers who said, what? This is terrible. How are we doing this? We need to make it better. And that's what women do. We find a problem and we make it better.
That's amazing. And, I think now that we're kind of in this point of our career and, we have had a lot of success, our partners have had success, that it's really great because everything I do is very purpose or mission driven. I'm a capitalist. I need to make money. I want to keep my lights on, but I also want to, as much as the world has given me, I want to give it back. So I think that's amazing that we're able to find platforms and jobs just in general that really have that mission. So let's go to talk about this care economy. This is I'm not a parent, but I see it's $1 trillion market. How do you see it evolving?
Not small, right? It's super exciting. In the care economy, some of the phrases people use are, the term from the first breath to the last breath. So it encompasses, and it will touch your life too, whether parenthood is on your journey or you're caring for older family members. But companies are really kind of now looking at this and looking at it from a benefit perspective and saying, what do my employees actually need when it comes to me defining benefits for them? How do I sustain them in the workforce? How do I grow their talent? I invested in them. I don't want to lose them. I need this talent in the workforce. But life comes at you from 70 different angles, right? Either your child is sick or you become ill or you're caring for somebody else. So that care economy is really looking at how can we put together benefits, innovation, technology, policies that are supportive of caregivers who are in the workforce. And it's just an exciting time because I think everybody's kind of looking at this of, again, there has to be a better way. And what can we do to make it better?
Well, just like ERGs and, being supportive for people, coming to work, we want people to feel like they're their best self. And, when you have a working parent that is, an employee of your company, you want them to come as their best self and fully refreshed and energized so they can quite frankly, return on the investment. So I think it's very crucial to make sure that, companies really see this as, a benefit, and it's only going to make better workers. It's going to retain, it's going to attract, and all of those different things. So that's amazing. I hope you guys keep on pushing with that march. Really going into that, what should employers and policymakers be doing now to support working parents better?
Oh, I mean, it's such a funny thing too. I think people feel like investing in parents will take so much time and policy change will take decades and new money. And there are improvements that are systemically needed that will require and demand that investment. But there are things we can do immediately. Actions employers can take, such as flexible work options. This goes for any, whether you're a new parent or, on different needs for your family members. Expanding remote work, those flexible hours, paid parental leave should just be like a no-brainer at this point 100%. Where we're at in society. Affordable childcare support, like you mentioned, just being allowed to bring your whole self to work. And that looks like not having to worry about a sick day. And, you'll meet the deadline. You hired good people. Trust that you hired good people. They'll get their work done, but offer them that flexibility and that supportive workplace culture. And you'll see dividends. I mean, it's just remarkable what people will do when they feel supported.
Yeah. And I think like if you look at like what COVID did and saying that, a 9 to 5 doesn't have to be the definition of a work day. It's if you're performing, you're getting your job done, you're hitting your KPIs, and your employee's happy. So I think that is a beautiful kind of transition. So transitioning to, in my book, I talk about, some of the biggest career pivots that I've had happen because we realized we're playing a game that wasn't designed for us. You spent a big majority of your years professionally in healthcare. Do you ever feel like the traditional healthcare system wasn't serving you or the families you were advocating for?
Oh, absolutely. And I want to acknowledge, right? I share my experience as a very privileged white woman who's had access to resources and education, but our system prioritizes efficiency over empathy, and it leaves patients feeling unheard and unsupported and not prioritized. And that's worse in many other places, and certainly something we need to look at. But in the US, it's really sore for the maternal health prospect. So, I mentioned when I gave birth to my third son, and I just couldn't access resources at this hospital. I couldn't get a lactation consultant for more than 24 hours. And in the world, for those listening that either have been in that seat or have no idea what I'm talking about, that's a lifetime in a newborn. That 24-hour period is pretty crucial. And I was handed this manila folder of information, a packet, right? This is in 2022. And a manila folder, I've got this baby in my arms. I'm caring for wounds of my own body. And I have this text-based instruction on a piece of paper that looked like it had been Xeroxed 7 times. And I thought, how are we doing this in 2022? And this is what I mentioned earlier in our segment where immediately I got on the phone with our co-founder and said, all right, I'm sitting here. There's a blank TV screen showing nothing. I immediately jumped onto my phone and watched the breastfeeding content on Tinyhood and was ready to go. Me and baby were back in business, and baby was taking a nap, and so was I, because I was able to figure out how to latch and feed, and did it all through this incredible technology and a platform that met my needs when I needed them. So that's just a moment to share how kind of antiquated, again, the system doesn't look at the person often, and it's just kind of running through and kind of churning out what we've always done. And so much has changed the way consumers want to get information, the way they want to be treated and informed. It's seismically changed from the time when our parents were in a healthcare system in this situation, and it's only evolving faster and faster. And technology has the ability to keep up, and health systems have a real responsibility to meet that demand.
Well, and the crazy thing is, this is your third rodeo,
Yeah.
so that you're still learning, is kind of aha moment. You usually just see these giant books that you get gifted
Oh,
at baby shower.
right.
Who has time, especially if you're a working parent, you are caring for elderly parents, all of the different things adding up. So, I just think it's very amazing what the technology and the platform does. It makes really snackable content
Mhm.
easy for the audiences, how and where and when they want to consume, the content. So I think it's a really important platform, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the podcast. Just a couple key takeaways. Pivoting isn't just about leaving something behind. It's about stepping into where you can make the biggest impact. More to come.
Now, a quick word from our partners, and then we'll return to In the Making podcast. In the Making is now available for digital pre-order on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making. Now let's get back to the podcast.
Just as a quick transition, I like to do a quick fire question. Cammy, what's a song that always lifts your spirit?
You're gonna laugh. You might have to Google it, but it's Florence and the Machine, Dog Days. It's a
Google it. It's like it was like one of the most popular songs.
I love it. I mean, I'll
do
never
too.
not hear it and want to just like think I can
Dance.
run. Go try
Also
and run.
dance and like
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, exactly. If
We're doing that next
you
time we
see
see
me running
each
out
other.
there, I'm listening to that song, and if you also see me running, just like ask if I'm okay.
And bring you water.
Also that.
Welcome to In the Making podcast. Please like and subscribe and engage. We want to hear from you.
And welcome back. We're here with Camie Berardi, and she's here talking to us with the reality of working parenthood in the system that's broken. Really, that's what this segment's going to talk about. Camie, you've worked at the highest levels of healthcare policy and advocacy, so but nothing could have prepared you for the transition into parenthood. What was the biggest shock to the system when you became a mom?
Wow. I think it's so fascinating because parenthood levels you. It levels everyone. It doesn't matter, your economic status or your education status, you are going to be brought down. and I don't say that, in a negative way, but I also just want to be very realistic. I had just no idea how much of a mental game becoming a new mom would look like and be. And again, I think this is such a focus is placed on those kind of that prenatal period, that expecting period is, are you buying the right products? Do you have the right sleep sacks or strollers? So you're kind of just pulled into and forced to look at all these like gadgets and stuff, right? That's just kind of how, of course, marketing is drawing you into that. And you overlook this massive shift that's going to happen to you, to your relationship. And I would say, so for me, I just had no idea how much of a mental health game I was going to have to play in the first year and still going. And I think that it happened too for my relationship with my partner, where it's just trying to navigate this demand, this tiny baby that has many demands. And again, I found myself just totally surprised because I knew all these terms. I'm in healthcare. I can navigate the system. And I didn't know I had postpartum depression and anxiety because I had just never, everybody talked about it very much like, oh, well, like, are you bonding with your baby? And if not, that's, go get help. But that wasn't what my issue was. And so I talked to these physicians, and every time I would walk out of a doctor's office, I just kind of left knowing that I wasn't going to get the help I knew I needed. And I think a lot of it was they saw an articulate woman who was holding and loving on her baby, but I was not sleeping. I was not well. I was very anxious, and I didn't know the words to use. So I say that, and I'll tell you, 9 years ago, I definitely would have had the courage to share this story with even my closest friends, let alone on a show like this. But I feel so compelled to tell people that it's important to understand that that's going to happen to you. There are resources to get help. And I love that the conversation over the last 9 years, that since I've become a mom, which by the way is my son's birthday today, it's kind of serendipitous, right? But so much more has allowed the conversation for women and their birth partners to share what they've gone through. And I love that conversation is opening up and people can be vulnerable and most importantly, get the help that they need when they need it.
That's amazing. And, part of, the big essence of In the Making and why I wrote this book is, I'm much more stronger than what I was, even a year ago. And so I'm just trying to, if one person listens to this show or one person reads the book, if I'm able to kind of show or give a preview or give advice of what I went through to help advert, maybe something that they've gone through. And I love that you're using that in this experience and this job to do that now. And I'm very proud of you, Cammy. So let's move on. So Dominic, your husband, gets a job, moves him to Hong Kong. You decide you're going to move to Hong Kong as well. So when you were in Hong Kong, when you figured out you were pregnant, how was that experience different than here in the States?
Wow, I know, it's so fun because I did have the chance to, have become pregnant in Hong Kong, and I was in this really beautiful international community. So, again, I'm steeped in kind of US standards of pregnancy and what they're focused on. But my community there was, people from France, people from Australia, everywhere that had different beliefs on how to kind of take care of your body and baby while you're pregnant. So it was great because immediately it was kind of challenging assumptions that I had assumed, okay, I can't eat sushi. Well, that's not true. Okay, come on, we can move on. Anyway, that was a fun experience. And I loved, the care I received in Hong Kong was great. And I had just a wonderful community. My physician team was great. And I was fortunate. It was a healthy pregnancy. And then we moved back about 7 months and I gave birth in Boston in Massachusetts. So we didn't have our birthing experience in Hong Kong, but the comparison, I just think there's a lot more celebrated about pregnancy, maybe overseas and the birth and that postpartum period. What I'll say, I wish I would have given birth in Hong Kong because they have such dedicated care to that mom post-baby. Boy, in the US, you're out of that hospital and you are on your own. The second you stand out. And I remember looking at my physician saying, I'm not ready to go home. Like, no way. What are you doing sending me home with this baby? And in other cultures, they send a team to go home with mom and to check on her every couple of days. There's real medical reasons to check on that mom, not just mental health, but also how she's physically recovering. Yeah. And boy, we're starting to really learn, but slowly, what we could be doing to make that transition to parenthood a healthier and a safer process for women giving birth in the US. So, boy, that was an interesting experience.
That's amazing. So, moving forward on, you've spoken openly about the challenges of being a working parent. What are some of the biggest hurdles you faced in the workplace?
I mean, we're out of the gate, right? You're going back to work. Maybe you had paid leave. I didn't benefit from a paid leave policy. So that was really tough on my family, right? We're without an income, living in a really expensive city. And I had 12 weeks of leave, but again, unpaid. So it just starts to that creeps into your mind. You wish you could be back with this baby, but you need to get back to work. And then
you're also just using your PTO.
Oh, all of it. You burn
it. And then when you get back, you're exhausted from being a mom. So then you don't get a PTO.
So and then guess what? My little babe's in childcare and they're getting sick. And that's going to happen because they're little babies. And now I'm taking sick days if I even had those left from what I burned for that PTO. And that struggle just, I mean, if I could just look back at in the employer sector and just say, I could have been so much better for you if we just had a supportive system. And so I know we're making great strides now. I think this is, again, we're only looking to improve right now, but it was really racking your brain between sick days and knowing that you just didn't feel like valued because it was just like, well, you're looked at by the number of days you just took off. And it didn't feel humane.
Well, and it's like, I think you're referencing to, when you were doing policy work, and it's sad, because, you're supposed to practice what you preach. And, part of those policies is to make things more equitable and transparent. But if the system that's making those policies aren't reflecting those changes that they're trying to make, for-profit and nonprofit companies abide by, it's kind of hypocritical. So what are some of the most overlooked workplace policies that could actually make a difference for new parents?
Gosh, I mean, I would say immediately, you could offer unlimited PTO. And I know there are some employers out there that hear that and think, oh my gosh, they'll just take 4 weeks vacation. And that's just not true. You can look at the data. That's not what people do. There's something intrinsic about how an employee feels valued and benefited when they hear unlimited PTO. They're not taking, a 3-month sabbatical with that. They're using that in a way to leverage how they can best serve their family's needs, unmet needs in themselves, and then bring their best self to work. I'd say quickly, just gradual return to work programs, jumping straight back in full time after you've just had a baby or other major life transitions. Those phased returns can really help with that transition. I think we have another crisis in our country right now with respect to kind of childcare, and if there's an opportunity for an employer to look at stipends and ways to support and offset those costs that an employee can contribute to as well. This isn't to shoulder it just on an employer, but if there's ways to kind of help balance that out. You mentioned kind of parenting employee resource groups. We hear from them all the time with Tinyhood, where Tinyhood's this kind of great low investment, meaning not a high cost for resources. And we just launched with another company who's their coworkers, their associates were saying, this has just helped me so much prevent fights with my spouse because they had this education. They knew what was coming. They kind of anticipated, their partner could anticipate needs that they didn't even know existed, because you don't know what you don't know till you get into it. And I'm telling you, from kind of a whole self, just these small little investments can make such an impact on your workforce. It's just a no-brainer.
That's amazing. Wow. So, in the making, the book, I talk about how sometimes we don't realize a system is broken until we try to move through it ourselves so many times. How did your own experience as a new mom shift your perspective on the policies you once worked on?
Right. I mean, it's kind of been overstated maybe, but becoming a new mom just completely changed the way I viewed workplace and healthcare policies. When you're sitting in that seat and you are the consumer and you are the patient, you thought you understood these challenges, but again, kind of like on paper. And then you see they looked great on paper. They're aiming for broad impact. That's what they're trying to do. And once you have to navigate those systems yourself, you realize just how many gaps there are and how detrimental those gaps are to the best version of yourself you can be. So, maternity leave, right? You hear that sounds generous. If you've never, you're in your 20s and you hear about maternity leave and you think, and I did, right? You're like, wow, okay, mat leave sounds great. You're going to be off for a couple of weeks, couple months. You have no idea what that transition requires. And so the pressure to return to work before you're ready just really is something I just wish we could really improve on in our society, and having kind of those flexible, sound policies that we know study after study tells us just helps support a workforce. But those gaps I mentioned too, like the cost and availability of childcare, I had no idea the game and the stress that working parents are under to try to fill gaps in childcare. I mean, we moved closer to home now. We're near grandparents, and I mean, my gosh, you could just...
you moved across the country because it just wasn't doable.
My husband traveled internationally for work, and so there'd be weeks at a time where he was gone, and, we're just patchworking it together to try to make life work. But then, of course, illnesses pop up, and now you're kind of shuffling and juggling, and those gaps are so real. And, we're coming up on the end of a school year in summer, and this is another major gap for working parents that I just never really appreciated, where how our school system serves an important and critical need. And then you've got to fill in these gaps and financially just, set money on fire in the summer for childcare. But it just became clear to me that policies were, again, just like our healthcare system, kind of designed with efficiency in mind and not looking at real life practicality. It wasn't built for working parents. It's expecting them. It always has expected them to adapt, just like our system expects women to just adapt and bounce back. That realization and that experience just really shifted my approach from not only from advocating for those policies, but making real structural change. So it's not just about having benefits on paper, it's about making sure they truly work for the people who need them. And I get to do that every day now, which is really
amazing. That's amazing, Cammy. You know, I think the key takeaway for me from this, segment is, working parents don't need to fix themselves. The system needs to catch up with the realities of modern family and the modern workforce. So more to come with Cammy after this quick break
from our partners, and then we'll return to In the Making podcast. Visit www.tinyhood.com for a complimentary week free trial. Thanks for listening.
You got this. I'm here to walk you through your options and help you assemble your unique tool belt.
Swaddles are great to help provide that womb-like atmosphere.
If baby has a latch issue, it's really important for us to fix that as soon as possible.
Newborn babies can go through as many as 12 diapers a day.
By performing choking CPR, you increase the chances of dislodging the object and saving baby's life.
Let's get started.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
A quick transition in the podcast and another quick fire round question. Cammy, you are a busy mom, 3 boys, a lot to juggle, full-time startup, parents that you're helping out with. I know they help you too, but what's a favorite daily wellness practice?
Wow. I'll tell you, it hits different after 40. Life hits different. So maybe in your 20s, early 30s, you're having that glass of wine. But I love taking a very good long bath and just listening to some spa music, right? I'm not trying to absorb new learnings. I am just letting that kind of resilience build back up. Rest can be restorative. So I love a good soak in the tub.
It's also good to reflect on what you've learned that day or that week, because we just so much that comes to us, and it's we don't sometimes we miss things because your brain can only work so fast.
I'll tell you, it's so true. I wish more people could pause to take breaks, and I need to say that again to myself, because the best learnings kind of happen in those moments. You're reflecting on things.
Yep. Thank you, Cammy.
All right, Michael, you've been leading the conversation, but now I get to flip the mic. Since In the Making is all about navigating change, I have a few questions for you. In your book, you talk about the rug being pulled out and how failure often leads to reinvention. Can you share with us a time when you had to completely reimagine what was going to be next for you?
Oh, 1,000%. I have a lot of experiences in my life where I thought it was going to go one way, but it ended up going in a complete opposite way. I was going to talk about how, the economy happened 2 years ago and the recession happened, and I was dabbing my toe into, should I just go do my own thing, or should I go back into corporate America? I was up for, 5 different C-suite in the final rounds, and then third quarter earnings comes in, and then those jobs were just, disappeared. But I'm actually going to talk about something different because you've been my friend a long time, and I think friendships are very important. I think a big happening that happened to me is when I decided to leave corporate America initially. And that's really was one of the hardest decisions of my life, because I'm a, traditional, classically bred corporate boy that has worked and climbed the ladder his whole entire life. And, I had an opportunity where I had a huge role for a global conglomerate. And, I could just continue to climb. But then I had a personal connection that basically that basically gave me an opportunity. This person owned our company for years, never been married, no kids, and was ready to retire. And so, she's like, I need someone like you in order for me to keep this business going. It's a very successful business. It's one of those businesses that happened by accident. So looking at it from the outside, I'm like, there's things that I could do that I know, the low-hanging fruit, that I could probably double this already pretty large, local business into, something even more meaningful. But I said no. And then for about 3 months, the same person, kind of persuaded me to, keep on looking at it. And then, I'm a, small town, humble boy from humble backgrounds. And so when this person gave me the opportunity to potentially, own half of it, if I hit certain, KPIs, then that kind of changed the game. It kind of was my golden ticket. And so, a few months of, sniffing each other's behinds and making sure this works. We already had a really good personal relationship. I kind of opened the hood of the business and seeing if this is something we mutually agreed this is the right thing for me. Well, I thought my close friend was my current boss at my current corporate gig. And I wanted to be transparent and I wanted to be honest because, I managed a team, I built a team, she brought me on because, we have a respect and trust and, at this point in our careers, a lot of times you get your jobs by, your network. And so I wanted to make sure I did her right and I didn't burn any bridges. So I let her know. And she's like, absolutely, Mike. The company was shifting. I came into the company basically in a completely different position than what I was recruited for, just because of how the economy shifted and whatnot. Still fun. I still was doing well, making a ton of money. But she's like, no, go do this. She's like, if anybody can do this. So I work out a plan with that then boss, and she gave me a huge kind of runway to kind of transition out so I could make sure that we found a replacement for me. My team was managed, all of those different things. I finally give my notice. And because I trusted this person, we were going through legal things, lawyers were evaluating the company, all of those different things. Anyways, I can remember this as like day. I finally gave my notice because I just had trust in this person, a friend. And basically, long story short, I'm walking into a sporting event. I get a text from this human. And basically, it's about, I would say probably 20 inches long saying, hey, I don't think this is the right time, yada, 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 I respect, da, 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 da. Well, this person didn't realize that respect, could have changed my livelihood and trajectory. And unfortunately, I have a great support system. And, I've been thinking about taking, a sabbatical for a while. But if this would have happened to anybody else that didn't have the safety nest, it was devastating. And it still was devastating, even though I had that to fall back on, because I left a really good company with the opportunity to grow in. And, and then kind of talking about, what I talked about when I lost those 3 positions, that was the lead up, because then there was no jobs after I already gave that. And, my boss and my bosses were great. They're like, we'll try to find another position, but we've already filled this role. And so, you can't fault them because, at the end of the day, they have to do what's best for the business. So that's probably one of the toughest ones. But I do think, like, at the end of the day, you have people in your life for a reason, season, or a lifetime. And obviously that person was a reason and a season. But then you have friends like you and friends like Larry Burns and friends like all kinds of people who have become part of my board of directors, my personal advocates, and really helped me be me. And so even though it was an unfortunate circumstance that happened, it was something that happened and I learned from it. And the proper group wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that. So
it's incredible. That's an incredible and intense journey. And I would love to hear more too, how your own career journey shaped your perspective on leadership and on resilience.
Yeah, Camie, that's a really great question too. I think the biggest thing is, I knew from the beginning I was always, I've been a VP at a VP level since I was 27 years old. So
Mhm.
I was, the young kid that got a seat at the table, but
Right.
also was the whipping boy. I had a lot of great opportunity. I learned a lot. I respected my elders, but at the end of the day, I think like, I it didn't matter if I was doing great things or I may have slipped up because I'm still learning. I think the whole whipping boy analogy, since I was, it's a double-edged sword of having those opportunities to sit at that table is, usually you're the first to be blamed. You're the
Sure.
first to not hear your ideas, and then someone maybe 10 years your senior has the idea maybe 20 minutes later and it's a great idea, and then guess what, they expect me to execute it. And I say that just in general marketing too. We're the first ones to get yelled at, and we're the last ones to get praises. And even though we get a lot of perks with those jobs, it's sometimes a thankless job. So I think my resilience is just thinking in the back of my head. And I had leaders that helped me and managers that helped me be advocates for myself and to speak up and to say, no, that was my idea, or even to me, like, hey, it's not your turn, Mike. It's okay to sit back.
Yeah.
You have a lot of career in front of you. This person may only have 10 more years. Let them have their shining moment because you're in the seat for a reason and you're not going anywhere. And so I think it's just, the key takeaways for that for me is just, you don't have to be the loudest in the room. You don't have to always be the shining star, but when there's impact that you can really make it heard loud and clear, because that's really part of your brand. That's going to, cement into the minds of people you're working with. And it's going to open the door for opportunities in the future.
I mean, that is so well said. I love that. It will, I want people to hear that it will really open those doors. And I'd love to hear too, Mike, what advice you would give to someone who's listening to this and they feel like they're stuck in a job that no longer serves them.
Yeah. I look at this and, I think of like the Obama twins and whatnot. And Camie, you and I graduated around the same time. You may be a year or two older than me, but at the end of the day, like, the world was like in shock when the Obama girls were like, we're going to take a gap year in between high school and college, or in between college and their career. We force people to decide what they want to do for the rest of their life at an age where we're still kids. Let's just be honest. And I love the idea of either a gap year or a sabbatical year or whatnot to help you get grounded and to like get away from your parents, to get away from your your normal and get uncomfortable, travel the world. I think it's pretty amazing. We have a mutual friend that's doing that shortly and just decided to pick up and, and move for a year. You get burnt out. And so I think as an adult, since we didn't get to do that because that was kind of a faux pas back then, I think we if you have the means to be able to stop, relax, breathe, take a sabbatical, whether it's a week, whether it's a month, whether it's a year. Like me, I meant to take a sabbatical year, but I also am an overachiever, high performer that gets bored, and part of my ego is built on working because I love it. But take the time, because it helps you, rebalance, refocus, go back to why you're even doing what you're doing. And do you need to continue doing what you're doing, or do you need to pivot and find something else? And, in that sabbatical year, don't make it about, I had the benders, I went to all the resorts and all of those things. But I also did a really good job of like, going and meeting 150 different people for coffees, for happy hours, for lunches, for dinners. And not because these people were going to get me my next job. It's just I've been in these companies and these big roles, and people know me for my philanthropic or my social life, but they don't know what I do. So I found people with the biggest ears and the biggest mouths that, you know, maybe when I do decide what I'm going to do next, they would be big advocates for me. And, you know, part of that was really just workshopping that ended up in becoming, you know, a lot of the projects that I'm doing with you and Stevie, with Larry and the Proper Group, and it's just evolved. And, you know, I think it's also allowed me to bring really smart people around me, because I can come up with the best ideas, but from, you know, an execution standpoint, bringing people with fresh perspective, their own thoughts and ideas, bringing more people to the table is just going to make it that much better and less work on you. So I think that was probably one of the best things that I can give as advice to young, mid-career, or people going through their second act.
And Michael, one of the things that I love about your book that kind of pushes this is the prompts and the questions that you ask. But what you've kind of just underscored in your own experience is that you need to give yourself permission to pause. There's beauty in this breakdown, and everybody's going to have a breakdown in their career. It's going to look different, but there's beauty in it if you can just kind of sit in those waters. And your story and your testament is it's so fruitful from that. You've gave yourself that moment to take a breath, and now look what's happening. It's just incredible.
Well, and I just love the ripple effect, because sharing the story is so important. And, you know, and the whole reason why I wrote The Making was to tell stories we usually skip over, you know, the hard, blurry middle, you know, that's another coined term that I'm finding out. But because we're so good at celebrating the after, but the truth is all the good stuff happens in the middle and in the making. So more to come, Cammy. Thank you so much for this, you know, insightful interview. And thank you for flipping the mic.
Now, it was fun for me too. Thank you.
And then we'll return to In the Making podcast. In the Making is now available for digital pre-order on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making.
Cammy, we do live in a really, really weird time right now, but, you know, I think you're an optimistic at heart. You know, what's one word to describe how you feel about the future?
I feel hopeful, and I know that is hard to hear and digest in kind of the daily news cycle that we are all trying to avoid or deal with. But I'm hopeful. I feel so hopeful that mothers have a voice right now. Women in female technology-enabled solutions are now being invested in and raised up to some of the highest levels. I'm just thrilled and hopeful because we're no longer being dismissed, and we don't have to navigate this broken system. We get to fix it. I'm very hopeful.
Well, I think it's like almost, you know, it ties into In the Making, you know, just like ourselves and our community and our world, you know, we're always evolving, we're always adapting, there's always a pivot. And I think, you know, a lot of times we think macro, that the world revolves around us, but we need to remember there's an entire world that we're just a tiny little blimp. So we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make it a better place. Thank you, Cammy. Welcome back. I'm here with Cammy. So Cammy, you've seen maternal and infant health from every angle: policy, insurance, advocacy, and now innovation. What gives you hope for the future?
I love that question. I mean, what really gives me hope right now is this growing recognition that maternal and infant health is not just a personal issue, it's a societal one.
Yeah.
Most people are now realizing that the systems that we've relied on for so long are not working. The outcomes are getting worse, and we're demanding better. And we see progress in policies like expanded paid leave and Medicaid coverage for that postpartum year, which now covers a mom after birth for 12 months in some states, and growing conversations like we've had today around the importance of maternal mental health and sharing those stories and being vulnerable to get the help you need. And in the insurance world, right, we're seeing this shift toward, right, this value-based care. So meaning better support for that preventative, more holistic treatment rather than just reactive care, right? We want to pay for better outcomes. And what excites me the most is this innovation, right? This new wave of startups. I just love this. The healthcare providers, policymakers are working together, but the new wave of femtech and famtech startups around meeting the actual needs of parents and babies and caregivers, not outdated systems. And so now we're seeing solutions informed by real world experiences, like my two co-founders at Tinyhood, right? Two female software engineers who said when they became mothers, there's got to be a better way to learn how to navigate parenting. So they built it themselves. And this isn't just awareness, right? It's tangible change. More hospitals are incorporating patient feedback. More companies are reevaluating their benefits and saying, what can we do to keep and retain this talent that we've already invested in? Legislation that centers around families' actual needs. So I'm hopeful. And the fact that mothers are no longer kind of being dismissed and forced to navigate broken systems, it's a powerful sign that we're moving in the right direction. We have a lot of important work to do. There are still systemic barriers. There's deeply entrenched racism in our system, but it's a powerful sign. We're not alone, and we're moving in the right direction, and we've got to keep pressing.
I love that you're leveraging all of the highlights from your life. You're really helping create a product in this new SaaS environment.
Right.
You're also advocating like you did in DC with the associations. You're also talking about policy and being an influencer on policy. I think it's so key. I do want to real quick ask you, if you can describe, Tinyhood in 30 seconds, the elevator speech, how would you do that?
Oh, I love this. And I get to practice this sometimes. I get little prompts. But, what Tinyhood is on demand, multilingual, expert-led education. So think TikTok and YouTube, right? So we actually hear this all the time from providers. There's a lot of noise for new parents. And TikTok, YouTube is good for many things, but it is also a source of spreading misinformation. So Tinyhood meets this demand, right? Where you've got this new generation of parents that's expecting bite-sized information. They want it in a health literacy level that's appropriate for them, in their language, on their schedule. And Tinyhood just makes it easy for parents to access that critical information. So from pregnancy through childbirth, infant care, maternal mental health, relationships, returning to work, baby, toddler, you got it. And we're working with partners across. So we've been serving direct to the consumer, right? We've been serving D2C parents directly. And then we just organically, so exciting, but healthcare systems and providers and employers have heard of us through a parent in their own little setting that said, you've got to get this more accessible. This Tinyhood changed my game in parenting. I mean, our reviews, Michael, if you pop onto Tinyhood's reviews, sometimes it blows my mind. They are the most genuine, meaningful content that I think a consumer product it would pay millions to receive, and we did not. So
that's a true testament to itself. That's amazing.
It's amazing. And so then organically, right, we've been pulled into this kind of healthcare ecosystem and this employer ecosystem to say we're seeing improved satisfaction, outcomes, reduced costs. Like we want to help in every angle. So the elevator speech, right? We're an on-demand, multilingual, expert education for new parents. And we care for that family from pregnancy through up to age 5. We can't wait to grow.
That's amazing. It's such a cool company. And, I'm just really glad that they found you and you found them. So, just kind of follow up on that. What's the most important thing we can do on a personal or systematic level to support parents?
I love it. And I think, the conversation we've been having is recognizing that parenting is not just a personal responsibility, but a collective one. We all know families. We are families. We're part of families. We need to support parents. Investing in stronger families and healthier children will breed a more resilient and healthier economic society. So personally, I would just say, offer support, judgment-free listening, advocacy in the workplace. When you see something wrong, say something. At that systemic level, these kind of policies we've talked about where you can just quickly, easily, and immediately turn to action, paid family leave, affordable childcare, Let's look at a workplace that is supportive of parents returning to work in all forms. I think there's just so much we can do to support, especially mothers, to help them stay in the workforce rather than dropping out due to caregiving responsibilities. I am hell-bent on that. If that is your choice to stay in the workforce, we need to do whatever it takes to keep that experienced talent in the labor market. And that's just really another thing I've lived to fight for.
I love that. And, part of what we're really experiencing, a little bit for, more seasoned mothers with the proper group is we're able to bring in folks from a fractional level that still wants to have, that VP title or that chief title, but doing it at a fractional time, at their, own comfort, have as many clients or as little clients as you want, have a work-life balance. So that's something that's really interesting, especially with people around our point in our career where, it's, yes, you can still make a lot of money this model, but it's also one of those things that, you can work smarter rather than harder. So and put your priorities. So
I guess that's the beauty of aging, right? Working
exactly. We're like fine wine, Cammy.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So a little bit more into Tinyhood because I'm just intrigued. You guys have, I've watched you do this company, for a little while now. Work for this company, and have seen it adapt and kind of grow and continue to grow and to continue to adapt. So with that being said, what's next?
Ooh, I love it. I'm just really excited, right? Our platform, Tinyhood's kind of tech-enabled solution and on-demand education is breaking down barriers that I have spent my career learning about, reading about, kind of ad nauseum talking about and trying to tackle from afar. And we're doing it. I have a front row seat to this day-to-day impact that our education and the empowerment can have for new parents, for working parents, caregivers, even grandparents. And we're making sure that parents everywhere, regardless of their location, their schedule, their budget, their language, their health insurance status, can have the knowledge that they need for life's biggest moment and to help that family thrive. There's, just like I said, there's so much noise in parenting. There's so much unsolicited advice. There's unsound advice. It's sometimes dangerous, and it's flying around on social media. That's where everybody's at, right? They're absorbing it in the platform that makes the most sense to them. And Tinyhood's been trusted by hundreds of thousands of parents already to kind of cut through that noise and empower them to make the best decisions for them and their children. I'm excited because now we have a platform that's larger, and we get the opportunity to kind of meet parents where they are, whether it's in their employer setting, in a healthcare setting, with their health plan, directly through their provider. It's just very exciting right now.
That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. So moving on. So I love to ask this question, little Cammy, I met you in a different stage of your life. But, if you could go back and give advice to yourself at the beginning of your career, really, what would you tell that Cammy?
Oh, and I love it because you get the beauty of, putting the image of that Cammy in different seasons of her life. But I would, there's this phrase I have this on my desk, and I say this to myself and to my kids all the time, that comparison is the thief of joy. And I think it is so profound to understand that if you try to compare your journey to someone else's timeline or expectations, you are robbing yourself of your own joy. So comparison is the thief of joy. This is true to me in my professional setting as it is in my parenting setting. And I think early on, part of what you've talked about through your book Within the Making, right? We followed all the guidelines and instructions of climbing that corporate ladder and doing the right thing to get that promotion, to get the title, to get the pay raise. And you were still always looking at someone else, right? What do they have? Well, why don't I have that? How do I get that? And that comparison can really rob you of the beauty that you do have. I would also, tell myself and high five that younger self to say, continue to surround yourself with people who will grow you. I've had amazing people like you, Michael, in my life, and people who challenge me, people who help me learn and unlearn things and cheer me along the way. I mean, what a gift. That is incredible. And I would say invest in those people, keep them close. And my favorite piece right now would just be keep following your passion. The best work happens when your passion meets action, and follow those issues that truly move you. I mean this, when I care so deeply about what I do, I don't feel like I'm working at all. It's when you're creating the most impact. And so I would just encourage that younger Cammy, continue to follow your passion. You will have no idea the ups and downs you'll go through, but it will, that pain might have a really important purpose.
I love that. And, I'm so proud of you, just to watch the journey, and most proud of you for being just a mom and putting those boys first. So it's been fun to watch. So, really from this segment, I think my key takeaway for the listeners is, we can't wait for the system to change. We have to build solutions now. Cammy, thank you so much, and we'll be back.
You've got this. I'm here to walk you through your options and help you assemble your unique tool belt.
Swaddles are great to help provide that womb-like atmosphere.
If baby has a latch issue, it's really important for us to fix that as soon as possible.
Newborn babies can go through as many as 12 diapers a day.
By performing choking CPR, you increase the chances of dislodging the object and saving baby's life.
Let's get started.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
Welcome back. Cammy, this was incredible. It's always so fun to catch up with you. You're one of those friends that it just feels like we just talked yesterday. So thanks for sharing your journey and for the work you're doing to support parents and families everywhere, literally everywhere. That's the power of SaaS, and that's the power of technology. Where can people, connect with you and learn more about Tinyhood?
Great. Yes. So, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me. We'll drop that information. And Tinyhood is just as simple at Tinyhood, TINYHOOD.com.
Awesome. Cammy, I'm so proud again. And if the listeners, loved this conversation, make sure to subscribe to In the Making. We drop a new episode every Thursday featuring incredible guests from all over the world who are navigating their own journey of transformation. Until next time, keep going, because we're all still in the making. Thank you.
Welcome to In the Making podcast. Please like and subscribe and engage. We want to hear from you. In the Making is now available for digital pre-order on Amazon. Get your copy today at amzn.to/4C5S365. The link is in the bio. Let's build something real together. In the Making.